Hey everyone, and welcome back to the show. Had you ever, I don't know, imagined waking up, right? But not just waking up with a sword in your hand, totally out of place, and like the weight of a whole empire, a whole world even, on your shoulders, and you have absolutely no idea how you got there.
Yeah, it's that kind of feeling, that disorientation and heavy responsibility that the characters in Byzantine Wars are grappling with right from the start.
That's exactly it. It's Byzantine Wars by Ian Schwartz. Total mind bender. We'll have a link to it on Amazon down in the description below if you want to check it out while we talk about it. But trust me, it's not just like your typical historical fiction. It's historical fiction, but with this added layer, like a video game bleeding into reality. And it all takes place in this really fascinating period of history.
Definitely. And it makes you think, how would you react if you suddenly found yourself in a world where the rules you thought you knew, no longer apply? And the decisions you make have consequences, but consequences that could change the course of history.
Right. I mean, we're talking about real historical figures, real events, all mixed in with this glitch in reality, this video game element. It's wild. If you're finding this even a little bit interesting so far, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of our future deep dives. But anyway, today we are diving into the material that you, our awesome listeners, have sent our way. We're going deep into the world of Byzantine wars, or as we learn, Romania, through these initial encounters. Different characters, different perspectives, all starting to give us a sense of this complex world and the conflicts that are brewing within it.
Right, exactly. It's like we're getting these initial glimpses, these snapshots of what's to come. And what's so cool is that each character we're looking at, like Torres, Jackson, and Lee, they're all thrown into this situation in completely different ways, but they're all dealing with that same sense of disorientation.
Okay, so let's talk about that disorientation. Let's start with Torres. He was a normal guy, living his life, and boom, suddenly he's Alexios in a world that, visually at least, looks a lot like modern Turkey. But everyone there calls it Romania.
And that's already a really interesting detail, isn't it? Because Romania was what the Byzantine Empire called itself. So right away, Schwartz is making this connection, grounding this fantastical element, this video game intrusion, within real history.
I know, it's so cool. And for Torres, there's no, game interface to guide him. No hub, no quest log, nothing like that. He's just thrown in. And even skill points, they're not something he chooses or allocates. They just seem to increase based on what he does. Like when he felt his charisma go up after that whole communal meal scene.
Yeah. And that scene in the village, it's such a vivid introduction to this world. You can almost smell the animals, feel the different textures, taste the food and the customs, washing before the meal, but then eating in a way that's totally unfamiliar. It really throws Torres and us as readers into this unfamiliar place.
Totally. And on top of all that, he's struggling with this question. Was his previous life all just a dream? Plus, physically, he's transformed. He's got the strength, the instincts of a warrior, which is something he never had before. It's like his mind is catching up to his new body, his new reality.
It really throws into question the whole idea of what's real and what's not. And it makes you think, how would you even begin to process that kind of change, that kind of loss of everything you thought you knew?
It would be incredibly difficult. Now, Jackson's experience is a bit different. She suddenly becomes Princess Heraclea, but she's not just playing a game. She's right in the middle of a very real chase. Like, there are Roman legions literally pursuing her. I mean, think about it. The game description she read was boring and political. That's so far from the reality of the situation, it's almost comical.
I know, right? Talk about misleading advertising. But it really highlights the disconnect between expectation and reality, not just for Jackson, but for all of these characters who are thrust into this situation. She was expecting strategy, maybe intrigued, but instead she gets captured by this Descartes Mortzuflos and then interrogated by Nikephoros. We know a Descartes is some kind of military leader in this world, right?
Yeah, and Nikephoros, from what we've seen so far, is not someone to be messed with. He's already accusing Heraclea of treason, working with foreign powers, the whole 9 yards.
It's a classic power play, isn't it? Accuse your enemies of the worst possible things, even if they're totally innocent, to undermine them, to make them seem like the villains. But what's really interesting is that even while Heraclea is his prisoner, Nikephoros is still trying to manipulate her. It shows how power isn't just about brute force or authority, it's about control, about getting into someone's head and influencing their thoughts and actions.
Exactly. He's playing mind games with her, even in that situation. Then there's Lee. She finds herself as Gontran Karaki in Abydos. Totally different place, different time. She doesn't even know what year it is. They use this weird dating system, year of the flight 473, which I guess I will learn more about later. But she's partnered with Diaresso, and get this, Diaresso is from Timbuktu.
Timbuktu, that's in West Africa. Right away, that tells you how vast and diverse this world is. We're not just talking about, a small corner of the Byzantine Empire. We're talking about the world that encompasses, well, who knows how much. And the fact that Lee is partnered with someone from so far away, it suggests that there are connections, interactions between cultures that we might not even expect.
It's like the whole world is in play here. And for Lee, it's not just that she's in a different body. She can feel Gontran, the original Gontran, still present within her. It's like she's sharing her consciousness with him. She has these urges, these feelings that aren't her own. And then there's this whole Melenos situation, this relationship that she just knows deep down is a bad idea, even though part of her feels drawn to him.
It's so creepy. Like, how do you even begin to navigate that? Having someone else's thoughts and feelings mixed in with your own, it raises all sorts of questions about identity and free will. Is she truly in control, or is Gontran somehow influencing her?
It's a total mind trip. But moving on from the characters themselves, it's clear that all of these characters are caught up in some pretty intense power dynamics and conflicts right from the start. We've got Butcher, who's shown to be incredibly brutal in his suppression of rebels in Smyrna.
Yeah. He's all about maintaining order no matter the cost. He calls the rebels traitors, justifies killing them without a second thought, and then just burns the whole city down. His plan is to repopulate it with refugees. It shows how far he's willing to go to maintain control, to crush any opposition.
Yeah, it's a very the ends justify the means kind of approach. And then there's Nikephoros, who we've already talked about a bit. His interrogation of Heraclea is just dripping with power and control.
He's clearly someone who is used to getting his way, and he's not afraid to use whatever means necessary to achieve his goals. Whether it's physical force, threats, or manipulation, he's got it all in his arsenal.
He's a master manipulator, for sure. And then we've got Narcissus, this soldier who is totally bored by the lectures from Paul the Chain.
Oh, Paul the Chain. Such an interesting character. He's got all this ideological baggage, all these theories about the world and how it should be. But Narcissus couldn't care less. He's got his own ambitions, his own reasons for being there. And we learn that he's actually from Maine, just like Dionysios.
Wait, seriously, another one from Maine. So he was just living his life, and suddenly he's in this crazy world, forced to be a soldier. What a trip. What's his mission, by the way?
His mission is to find this manual, this Zayatan fighting manual, and eliminate whoever has it. And the manual itself seems to be a huge deal, something that everyone is after.
Okay, so let's talk about this manual. It's clearly a major plot point. Alexios, or Torres, I guess we should call him, he's tasked with delivering it to a guy named Dionysios. And Dionysios is another piece of the puzzle that's got me really intrigued. He's from Maine, too, but get this, he's from 1954.
1954. Can you imagine? Being ripped from your life in the 1950s and thrown into the Byzantine Empire, that's like going back in time over 1,500 years.
I know, it's crazy. No wonder he's got this jaded view of things. He sees the world, both the one he came from and this new one, as just different versions of the same game. It's kind of cynical, but you can understand where he's coming from.
Yeah, definitely. He's seen it all, experienced so much that he's kind of lost faith in any kind of system or ideology. But what's interesting is that he seems to have a pretty good grasp on how things work in this world in Romania. He knows the rules, the players, the strategies.
Which makes him a valuable ally, especially for someone like Torres, who is still trying to figure everything out. And speaking of valuable, this manual they're dealing with, it's not just some random book. This thing has everything. History, psychology, economics, philosophy, even martial arts, tactics, engineering. There's even stuff on first aid and navigation.
It's like a blueprint for, well, everything. It's like someone took all the knowledge they could find, all the secrets to success, and crammed them into this one book. And what's even more amazing is that it's printed. We're talking movable type printing, which was originally developed in China or Korea.
Yeah, that's a huge deal. Movable type printing wasn't supposed to exist in Europe for like centuries after this time period. It's a total anachronism, but it makes sense in the context of this whole video game intrusion thing. Think about the implications. Suddenly, you have the ability to mass-produce information, to spread ideas far and wide.
It's a total game changer. Before, knowledge was controlled by a select few, the elite, the clergy. But now, with printing, the potential for widespread dissemination of information is huge. It could empower the masses, challenge authority, lead to revolutions. It's literally a tool for changing the world.
Exactly. It's a huge deal. No wonder it's causing so much conflict with everyone wanting to get their hands on it. It's like a weapon of mass knowledge or something. And speaking of conflict, we start to see the formation of different factions, different alliances, as everyone scrambles to either control or obtain the manual.
You've got the meeting between Alexios and Dionysios, which suggests that they're going to be working together. Then there's the escape from Abydos, with Alexios, Dionysios, Gontran Lee, and Diareso all on the run. It's this really unlikely group, all with their own motivations and baggage.
Talk about your dysfunctional team-ups. But they all have something to offer. Dionysios has the experience, the knowledge of this world. Alexios, or Torres, he's kind of the wild card, the one who's still figuring things out, but who might have some unique skills or perspectives to bring to the table. And then there's Gontran, or Lee, who's dealing with this whole internal conflict, and Diareso, who's this intriguing outsider from a completely different culture.
It's going to be interesting to see how they work together, how their relationships evolve, and how they navigate the dangers that are surely coming their way. Especially with the manual in play, everyone is going to be after them. And speaking of everyone, we get glimpses of other factions as well. There are the Demoi in Constantinopolis, these powerful urban groups who seem to be maintaining the status quo for now. And then there's Du Bagarcioni in Trebizond, who's starting to lead an uprising.
So we're seeing the beginnings of a wider conflict, a struggle for power that's playing out on multiple levels. You've got the individual struggles of our main characters, but then you've got these larger political and social forces at play. And the motivations are all so different. Some people are driven by ambition, some by ideology, some by a desire for change, some by a desire to protect what they have.
And let's not forget the cultural and religious elements that are woven throughout the story. We see Muslims, Africans, and Germanic people in that tavern scene. We hear about English heretic hunters, and we see Narcis's intense religious nationalism.
There are so many layers to this world. It's like Schwartz is taking all of these different historical and cultural elements and blending them together in this really fascinating way. And it makes you think about the Byzantine Empire, its real history, and how it was this crossroads of civilizations, this melting pot of different cultures and beliefs.
Right. It wasn't this monolithic entity. It was a complex and dynamic society full of contradictions and conflicts, just like the world that Schwartz has created. And then there's the issue of slavery, which is just touched upon in the material we've seen so far. But it's a reminder of the darker side of this society, the injustices that existed alongside the cultural and intellectual achievements.
It's a reminder that no historical period is perfect, that there are always going to be problems and challenges. And it's a reminder that even in a world that's been transformed by a video game, the human element is still there. People are still driven by the same desires, the same flaws that they always have been.
Exactly. Technology might change, societies might rise and fall, but human nature remains a constant. And that's what makes this story so compelling. It's not just about the action or the adventure. It's about the characters and how they navigate this complex and often dangerous world.
It's about the choices they make, the alliances they form, and the sacrifice that they're willing to make. So to sum it all up, we've got a group of ordinary people who have been thrown into an extraordinary situation. They're facing danger, intrigue, and a whole lot of unknowns.
And at the heart of it all is this mysterious manual, this repository of knowledge that has the potential to change everything. It's a symbol of the power of information, the power of ideas to shape the world.
And it leaves us with so many questions. Who will ultimately control the manual? How will it be used? Will it lead to a revolution? Or will it be used to maintain the existing power structures? What will happen to our main characters? Will they survive? Will they thrive? Or will they be crushed by the forces that are swirling around them?
And on a more philosophical level, it makes you think about the nature of reality itself. If a video game can bleed into our world, what else is possible? Are the boundaries between what we perceive as real and unreal as solid as we think they are?
It's mind-blowing. And that's what makes Byzantine Wars such a great read. It's thought-provoking, it's exciting, and it leaves you wanting more. So we want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on what we've discussed so far? What stood out to you? What questions do you have?
Let us know in comments below. We love hearing your insights and theories. And if you're enjoying this deep dive, please share it with your friends, family, anyone who might be interested in exploring the world of Byzantine Wars with us.
Thanks for joining us. Until next time, happy reading.